this way. I've actually visited the Yorkshire Sculpture Park on many occasions and had a particular affinity to James Turrell's Dear Shelter Skyscapes. I think particularly because in that space you sit, if you have visited it, you sit in this chamber and look out at the sky space, and it's that same experience of kind of feeling a part of something that's kind of greater than yourself, really, and also down to sort of spatial depth. So depending on what the sky is doing at any particular moment when you go in there, it either looks like it's completely immense, or I think the first time I experienced it, it was just a grey sheet, and you couldn't see anything. So I think I've always been fascinated with that. So I really welcome the opportunity to work with Dan and Amanda Astorius and Phil Johnson to sort of go and spend time in the Yorkshire Sculpture Park looking at spending sort of nearly 24 hours in the space and just responding to it and capturing. So before we went there, we used Stellarium, and for me, looking at what, sort of looking at the sky and the movement of things across the sky at the time I was going to go there, perhaps in 3 weeks' time, and sort of capturing it, but also obviously being somebody who's quite fascinated with kind of visual qualities, speeding it up as fast as possible and watching everything move and then slowing it right down, and also the fascination of being able to go, way, way back in time and trying to sort of imagine that these things are kind of working. So this was really, it was interesting to sort of be in the place that I was going to visit sort of virtually and think of the memories of the experience I've had of Yorkshire Sculpture Park and try and reconcile that with what was looking at on the screen. So I created this piece of work which was thinking around the experience I might have once I got to the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, and how do you reconcile something that you can see this speed of time kind of moving really quickly whilst at the same time sort of being aware that you've not got all the other stimulus around you of the kind of smells and sights and sounds. So following that, we were on site from I think around 3 o'clock one day till 11 in the morning, so we did all sort of over the night and the next day, being able to access James Turrell's artwork, but also being able to be in the grounds after it had closed down. And for me, again, it was about what can I take to capture. So moving image, videos, writing notes, trying to capture that experience and think about it at the same time as absorbing it. The work that we did in Stellarium before actually really affected my experience in a way I hadn't imagined, and although it sort of sounds strange to say it now, standing in after dark and watching the speed or not of the moon moving across the sky was kind of strange. It was almost like I felt I needed to be able to press a button and speed all that up like I had been able to. But what it did do was really draw my attention to things I've not noticed in the park before. A very different experience to be there when there's no visitors, to have that sort of clarity to look at the sky, but also absorb the kind of environment and things around it. So one of the things that was really outstanding and is quite strange is the sheep, because actually you perhaps don't notice the sheep too much other than they're kind of like spots in the landscape and they're part of you walking around and the experience, but actually we're a really different presence. And once the sort of hustle and bustle of the day had gone past, these sheep became a really prominent part of the experience. So the entire time we had telescopes looking up at the moon. I was fascinated. This is not a kind of environment I'm in very often, but actually was really could not get away from the sheep that were very much kind of wandering around, bleating loudly, really loudly, obviously clearly not that happy about the presence, biting camera cases and just generally making their presence very felt, but also being aware of that experience of kind of, again, something that's larger than yourself, you being embedded in it, and then suddenly becoming really aware that your feet are so cold and you're walking through wet grass or massive thistles that are actually touching your leg. The cold, the temperature suddenly becoming unbearable to be outside, and all of this stuff starts to feed into the experience and what I'm interested in capturing. So some things very specific to the site.